The International Development Association, or IDA, is a part of the World Bank that helps the world's poorest countries. Overseen by 173 shareholders nation, IDA aims to reduce poverty by providing loans called credits and grants for programs that boost economic growth, reduce inequalities, and improve people's living conditions. IDA complements the World Bank's original leading arm, the International Bank for Reconstruction and Development, IBRD. IBRD was established to function as a self-sustaining business and provide loans and advice to middle-income and credit-worthy poor countries. IBRD and IDA shares the same staff and headquarters and evaluate projects with the same rigorous standards. IDA is one of the largest sources of assistance for the world's poorest countries, 39 of which are in Africa, and is the single largest source of donor funds for basic social service in these countries. The important objective of the ADI are the following: arrangement of money-related help to less developed nations on simple terms with a lower overhauling charge than the one charged by the World Bank, advancement of financial advancement in efficiency and ensuing charge in the expectations for everyday comforts in less created areas in the world. IDA lends money on consensual terms. This means that IDA credits have a zero or very low interest charge and repayments are stretched over 25 to 40 years, including a 5 to 10-year grace period. IDA also provides grants to countries at risk of debt distress. As the largest source of consensual finance, IDA is recognized as the global institutions with a transformative effect that individual national donors cannot match. Here's why. 1. IDA provides leadership on global challenges, from its support for climate resilience for the creations of jobs to get former combatants back into society. 2. IDA is transformational. IDA helps countries develop solutions that have literally reshaped the development landscape. 3. IDA is there for a long haul. IDA stays in a country after the cameras leave, emphasizing long-term growth and capacity to make sure results are sustained. 4. When the poorest are ignored because they're not profitable, IDA delivers. IDA provides dignity and quality of life, bringing clean water, electricity, and toilets to hundreds of millions of poor people. 5. IDA makes the world a better place for girls and women. IDA works to reverse gender discriminations by getting girls into school, helping women access financing to start small businesses, and ultimately helping to improve the prospect of families and communities. Next, working with the World Bank Group, IDA brings an integrated approaches to development. IDA help create environments where change can flourish and where the private sector can jumpstart investments. And finally, IDA is also a global leader in transparency and undergoes the toughest independent evaluations of any international organizations. For example, IDA placed in the highest category in the 2014 A Transparency Index for the first time, ranking 4th out of 17 multilateral organizations. Structures of IDA: the underlying membership of the part nation was $1,000 million from the perspective of memberships and voting power. The part nations of the IDA fall into two classifications: Part 1, part nations, and Part 2, part nations. Part 1, nations pay their whole share of membership. Some imperative Part 1 nations are the USA and UK, France, Netherlands, Federal Republic of Germany, Canada, Australia, Sweden, Japan, and so forth. Part 2, nations comprise of less developed nations: India, China, Pakistan, Brazil, Argentina, and Indonesia. They were required to pay just 10% of their membership standards. IDB, or Islamic Development Bank, is an international development institution engaged in finance. The bank was established through its mutual consent of its all members and ratified and conducted in Saudi Arabia on August 12, 1974. The purpose of this establishment of the bank is to accelerate economic development and social life of its members, who are Muslim communities that are in accordance with Islamic Sharia principles. As a financial institution, the bank has functioned to provide equity in capital and on savings that can be used for the things that produce and assist businesses. The bank also has special funds for special events affecting member countries and non-member countries that are Islamic countries. This bank can save its customer funds and mobilize existing funds for mutual interests with the Islamic Sharia concept. The bank also assists international transactions involving members, creating training facilities to develop human resources for Islamic countries. As an international organization, IDB has members who contribute. The IDB consists of 57 countries where all countries are Muslim countries as well as countries with a majority of Muslim. Each country also pay different contributions according to country capability. The country with the largest share is Saudi Arabia with a total of 23.5% of funds from the entire country, while Indonesia is in the 12th place with a contribution of 1,137.95 million US dollars. Of course, this is viewed for the liberal perspective. The cooperative forms between these countries occur because of the similarity of identity and also because of the interests of each countries, existing cooperation in the form of financial aid from member countries itself. This exclusive bank also helped many fellow Islamic countries where much lending is based on Islamic Sharia law, which has a system different from another conventional banks. Sharia banks do not burden member countries such as incriminating interest and so on. The bank also points out that the larger owner of capital will give more power in the organization. UNDP was formed in 1965 and works in nearly 170 countries and territories, helping to achieve the eradication of poverty and the reduction of inequalities and exclusion. UNDP helped countries to develop policies, leadership skills, partnering abilities, institutional capabilities, and build resilience in order to sustain development results. UNDP itself is a part of ECOSOC in UN. This is a critical time for the world. At UNDP, we see this period as a huge opportunity to advance the global sustainable development agenda. Last year, world leaders adopted the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development to continue the world of the Millennium Development Goals. UNDP is working to strengthen new frameworks for development, disaster risk reductions, and climate change. We support countries' effort to achieve the new Sustainable Development Goals or global goals, which will guide global development priorities for the next 15 years. UNDP focuses on helping countries build and share solutions in three main areas. First, sustainable development. Second, democratic governance and peace building. Third, climate and disaster resilience. In all activities, UNDP encouraged the protection of human rights and empowerment of women, minorities, and the poorest and most vulnerable. The annual development report commissioned by UNDP focuses the global debate on key development issues. The UNDP administrator is the chair of the UN Development Groups, which unites the funds, programs, special agency, departments, and offices on the UN system that play a role in development. If we seek from the liberal perspective, they cooperate with lead countries as a funder to support a developed country. As we can see that in liberal perspective, a nation that join an international organization because they want to achieve their own national interests, and every country have their own interests. In UNDP itself, we can split it into types: a lead country as a founder and a developed country as the one who receives support. APEC stands for Asian Pacific Economic Cooperations, a regional economic cooperations organization in the Asia-Pacific region. The organization was first established in 1989, when the Asian Pacific Ministerial Meeting was held in Australia. APEC is an economic forum to promote cooperation and trade liberalization covering all major economies in the Asia-Pacific region. APEC members numbers 22 members who meet annually for deliberations on issues facing the group. The last meeting took place in Beijing, China, such as the United States of America, Australia, Brunei Darussalam, Chile, Philippines, Hong Kong, Indonesia, Japan, Canada, South Korea, Malaysia, Mexico, Mongolia, Papua New Guinea, Peru, People's Republics of China, Russia, New Zealand, Singapore, Taiwan, Thailand, and Vietnam. The history of APEC. The collapse of the Soviet Union with the communist economic system followed by change in the economic system of the country in Eastern Europe that had previously only have been a follower. The closed communist economic system gradually evolved into a liberal free economic system, so the emerge of awareness that every country need each other. At the time, the Uruguay rounds talk were held that discussed the world trade order. Due to concerns over the collapse of its talk, it becomes the cause of establishment of the APEC organization. If the talk fails, there will be protectionist attitudes and birth of close regional group, while the world at the time lead to free trade system. APEC is working together to build anti-protectionist policies in members' countries by reducing tariffs and also away from obstacles from free trade. The unification of resources causes members to share information and increase wealth for individuals and businesses. APEC has the benefit to citizens of creating more opportunities in the workplace. Goods and services are cheaper and also further enhance the ability to participate in the international market. 1. To improve the welfare and economic development in the Asia-Pacific region. 2. Increase economic cooperation through increased trade and investment. 3. Fight for economic interests in the Asia-Pacific regions and the midst of international economic development. 4. Promote trade. 5. Expand the flow of technology and network of potential partners in the Asia-Pacific region. 6. Develop human resources by finding ways to exchange information among APEC members in business administrations, innovations, project management, industry planning, and training. 7. Compile the server against the telecommunication environment. 8. Recommend how to improve infrastructure and improve transportation security. The function of APEC. Cooperation from APEC provides benefits for its member countries, especially its developing members, including Indonesia as well, making the prices of goods and services cheaper and enhancing the ability to participate more in increasing exports. 2. APEC also provides benefits to its member countries by creating more opportunities in the workplace also can make member countries to meet the needs of the country and for the establishments of cooperation so that it will facilitate the process of helping peace between member countries and will automatically create peace, world order, international. 3. The benefits of APEC is for its members are to increase free trade in Asia-Pacific region. 4. Beneficials in increasing the flow of goods and services as well as promote the economic growth of its member countries and also can open market for the domestic industry will be increasing. 5. APEC is one of the organizations that can increase the number of export and imports as well as to enhance cooperation, especially in economic budgets of member countries. 6. To enhance the private sector's role to liberalize trade, and one of APEC's pillars is to facilitate trade and investment directly. 7. APEC is one of the organizations that can be used as a forum for sharing experiences. Asian Development Bank. According to the Asian Development Bank's official website at adb.org, the Asian Development Bank is a bank built in the 1960s and is a financial institution aimed at fostering economic development and collaborating with the world's poorest regions. During the 1960s, the ADB focuses most on its assistance on food productions and rural development. The first president of the ADB was Takeshi Watanabe. At the beginning of the ADB has 31 members and currently has grown to 67 members who are countries in Asia and outside Asia. When the world encountered the first oil price shocks, ADB increased its support for energy projects, especially the development of domestic energy resources and its members' countries. In 1974, ADB through the Asian Development Fund to provide low-interest loans to the poorest members of ADB. But in the late 1970s, many countries in Asia were able to increase their economic growth so that assistance from ADB was not needed. In 1979, following the Second World Oil Crisis, ADB continued its support in infrastructure development, particularly on energy projects. But beyond that, ADB also helps in social infrastructure, including projects involving microfinance and the environment, education, urban planning, health issues, and helping women and girls. In mid-1997, there was a massive economic crisis that hit Asia. ADB responded to the crisis with projects and programs to strengthen the financial sectors and create a social safety net for the poor. ADB approved its largest single loan, a $4 billion emergency loan to the Republic of Korea, and set up an Asian currencies crisis support facility to speed up aid. When viewed from the history of the establishments and the objective functions of ADB, then to analyze the role of ADB as an international organization in the fields of development can be done using perspective of liberalism. In liberalism, to create a safe and comfortable world requires cooperation and assistance from capable countries to countries that need. ADB currently consists of no poor countries in Asia, but also developing countries outside the Asia regions. The goal is to assist the development of poor and developing countries in the development of their country. Organizations for Economic Cooperation and Development (OECD) is an international organization engaged in economic cooperation and development. The OECD International Organizations is also called the Organizations for Economic Cooperation and Development. The purpose of the establishment of the OECD or Organizations for Economic Cooperation and Development is to strengthen cooperation and interstate economic development to achieve sustainable economic stability. OECD is a development of OEEC, Organizations for European Economic Cooperation, established in 1948. OEEC organizations is only composed for European countries. However, under the Conventions on Organizations for Cooperation and Economic Development in 1961, non-European countries were also enrolled in the membership so that the OEEC name was officially renamed OECD or Organizations for Economic Cooperation and Development. The OECD now has 35 states as members. Most OECD members countries are developed countries, but there are also some developing countries incorporated therein. Developing countries joining the OECD including Turkey, Mexico, and Chile. OECD headquarters is in the city of Paris, France. The structure of OECD itself consists of three instruments, namely 1. Council. Members of the member states and the European Commissions are presided over by the Secretary General. The Council functions as a supervisor and organizational strategic policymaker. 2. Committees. Consists of representatives of member countries meeting regularly to discuss and review specific policies such as economy, commerce, education, or finance. 3. Secretaries of Secretariat head assisted by the representative and board of directors, serving as operational implementer of policies established by the Council as well as support tool for the tasks of the committees. OECD in liberal perspective. OECD emphasizes on efficiency aspect, open market system, free trade system, and industrialization-based development. Other efforts are to reduce poverty, maintain financial stability, creating a strong investment and trade climate, and develop technology, innovations, and entrepreneurship. These things prove that OECD believes in international cooperation in which the cooperative nature of the OECD is able to achieve the collective interests of members countries. The OECD also obtained funding from member countries contributions, and the OECD also affirmed that any decision making is based on consensus building or mutual agreement and prioritizing transparency.